Hey YouTube, my name is Nick, and in today's video, I want to talk about how I was able to turn the original Panasonic Q DVD remote into this digital format, which I have here on my Android cell phone. And the model that I have here is the LG V20. But before I go further into how I even got this to work, I want to talk about all the possible options that you can buy right now in order to get a Panasonic Q DVD remote. So currently, there are only a handful of ways to get a Panasonic Q DVD remote. And the options are: one, you buy one off the secondhand market, and usually these remotes cost like $100 or more just for a used remote, and some of them may not even work. So there is that. There's the original model option. I actually got a remote from Etsy because there is a seller on there who sells reproduction remotes. So basically the remote looks nothing like the original, but it basically has all the commands that the Panasonic Q is expecting, and thus functions just like the original. So there is that option. And there's a third option, which is actually what I did before I got the reproduction remote from Etsy, which is that for those who may not have known, you actually can get the Panasonic Q remote from the Logitech Harmony series of remotes. You can still download those codes now. And actually, just to show you, this is the remote that I bought. This is the Logitech Harmony 650. And as you can see, there's a bunch of devices that can be programmed to this remote. And if you look very carefully, you can see that I have the Panasonic Q right here. So when I press this button, it gives me some of the functions that the original remote has. And I want to emphasize the word some because for some reason, whoever uploaded the file to make this work with remotes like this didn't upload all the commands for this remote. So while this remote that I have in my hand actually has basically all the commands for the original remote, the original one that's on Logitech servers, they do not have all the codes and are actually lacking at least half the buttons. So if you were to get a reproduction remote, I would not recommend going down the Logitech Harmony route because a lot of the commands are missing. This is the actual reproduction Etsy remote, which I purchased a little while ago. And so now we'll get to the interesting part, which is how did I take the original Panasonic Q DVD remote and turn it into something that can be sent from my cell phone? So I kind of alluded to it a little bit before, but again, this is an Android smartphone. This is an LG V20. And this was one of the last few phones to come to North America that had an IR blaster embedded in it. And what that means is that there is a port on the top of this cell phone, which basically lets you send IR command signals right from the Android cell phone. So basically, this thing acts like a universal IR remote. And so I can send practically any command as long as I have the codes for it. And so why did I do this? Well, this is for a preservation effort, and just because I actually wanted the codes on this phone so that I could just use this instead of buying the original. And so now you might be wondering, what use is that though if you have such an old cell phone that uses these codes? Like what if I don't have an old Android smartphone? Well, actually there are still a lot of Chinese smartphone manufacturers that do create Android phones with IR blasters in them. So this might be of use to those people, and that's why I did this. And so now you might be wondering, how did I even do this in the first place without having the original remote? Well, basically what I did is, so first I started with this remote. As I said before, I bought this remote. It didn't have all the commands. I was a little bit disappointed. And so in order to learn the codes, I actually had to use a, what was it? It was an Arduino. I specifically have the Arduino Uno R3. And so I hooked this to my computer with this cable and this Arduino, and there's basically an open source library that lets you learn a bunch of codes using this little antenna here, this is like a universal IR receiver. And so by soldering these wires to these very specific ports and changing some commands in the code, with this remote, I was able to basically get the other codes that were missing from this remote, and I was able to basically get the raw hex information that allows the Q to receive the codes that it's looking for. And so because this IR app I have here lets me set the raw data codes, I was practically able to reproduce the entire Panasonic Q remote, with one exception, which is the actual shift key. I actually was not able to confirm what the raw hex code is for the shift key, so if someone has an original Panasonic Q DVD remote and could basically get a setup like this, where they could learn the codes using an Arduino and the open source IR Blaster library. If you could leave that raw code in the comments, I'll add it to the Google Sheet that I have up. And so yeah, basically I'm gonna have this Google Sheet uploaded with all the raw hex codes, and also I'm gonna include the XML file for this app so that you can basically get all these codes for free. And also, I didn't do it with just IRPlus, but I also did it with this newer app called IR Blaster, I think it said. I also made the codes with this remote as well. The drawback with using this app is that this app only works on newer versions of Android, whereas the other IRPlus app works on older versions of Android. And so basically I'm going to have this included as well. I'll just upload it to Google Drive, so these will all be fully downloadable. And I just want to show you that I can swap between modes and stuff with this, and I'm pretty sure all these commands would work. Again, with the exception of shift, because when I purchased this reproduction remote, it didn't have the shift command paired to its own button. It was paired to like two things in one, because apparently you use the shift key with the preferences key in order to change some region settings for the DVD drive. But since you saw in my last video that my disk drive currently does not work in the state that it's in, I'm currently ordering some parts to hopefully fix it. But since that is the case, and I cannot show that for a fact all these buttons work, the way I know that these codes are correct is because someone named HDR posted actually the command and address lines on GitHub. With this Arduino Uno R3, I was able to point my phone at this receiver and basically check that the command and address matches. And I know for a fact that probably all these buttons work because I'm able to turn off and on the Panasonic Q with this remote. Like I showed right in the introduction that I was able to turn it on and off. But I'll show you as well that I can swap between modes. So basically, even with this version of the remote, which this is different from the other app, this uses the same codes, obviously. I'm going to turn it off. So there it goes. If I scroll down to the bottom to DVD /CD play right here, and I hit go, you'll see that it starts in DVD mode, and you see the GameCube menu does not appear on the screen. So if I scroll back up to this app, turn off the Panasonic Q, and then scroll back down to game. Oh, and I have to point it at the thing. You can see that it boots back into the GameCube. So it is taking the codes, no problem. So I'm pretty sure all of these commands will work flawlessly. But again, I just can't prove it at the moment because majority of these buttons are used in the DVD mode, with the exception of the game timer. that one works in game, but again, because I can't read discs and I don't have something like the flippy drive, I currently cannot test that button, but I'm pretty sure it would work properly. And again, the only code that I am missing currently is the shift key. And that's again because this did not have all the codes, and this was missing the shift key as its own button. So even with the combined 2-in-1 command, where it was preferences and shift according to the documentation from the Etsy seller, that's the one code I couldn't get to work. So if anybody can read that shift command from their remote and put like the raw hex code in the comments, I almost said in the description, I will add it to my Google Sheets, which I'll upload. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to showcase in this video. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.